So let's take a company that's raised $1 million at, let's say, $5 a share, and now it decides it's time to bring in a CFO or a new head of marketing. Startups always pay less than other companies, and that's important, actually. Investors generally want to see the senior management working for less at the startup than they could make somewhere else, because it tells them, signals to them, that management, who knows the business better than anyone, is so convinced this business is going to work that they're prepared to sacrifice what they're making in the short term because their equity interest, their share ownership, is going to make them rich in the long term. If you are an investor and you see employees in a startup who are making more than they were making before the startup, or than they're worth in the market, you run. Do not walk away from that investment, right? So you're going to bring in a marketing guy or a CFO. These are senior people, and they're probably making a lot more money than the company can either afford or would want to pay them. So the only way to induce them to come is to give them a big equity interest. But if the company issues them a bunch of shares, under Canadian tax rules, those shares have a deemed value of $5 a share, because that's what you sold the shares to investors at. And that means these guys have an immediate tax hit, which they're unprepared to do, because it means they have to pay taxes on the shares they got, which is often millions of dollars worth of shares. They don't have the cash to pay the taxes. What they've got are shares that may or may not be worth anything down the road, depending if the business is successful. The one time this doesn't happen, the best time to give shares to a company, is right at the time of incorporation, before you've raised money from outside third parties, because then you can set the value of those shares at whatever you want, usually a fraction of a penny per share, and you don't have this tax issue. So one of the first things that an entrepreneur should do is look around, think of what expertise you're going to need in the short to medium term, and track that down initially at the time the company's incorporated.